It's officially the dead zone of the NFL calendar, that unique time of year when the draft is long behind us, training camp still lies just out of reach, and NFL writers, analysts, and fans are left in a holding pattern, clinging to any morsel of content they can find to keep the football conversation alive. With no new games to analyze, no roster cuts to debate, and no viral training camp videos yet to spark trending speculation, this period becomes a breeding ground for hot takes, outrageous trade theories, ranking lists, and increasingly bizarre hypotheticals. And as has become tradition during this content drought, some analysts lean fully into the chaos. Enter Brad Gagnon of Bleacher Report, who recently unleashed one of the offseason's more eye-opening predictions. Gagnon floated a scenario that would send Tampa Bay Buccaneers quarterback Baker Mayfield out of Florida and into the arms of either the Pittsburgh Steelers or the Minnesota Vikings, all before the 2025 season even hits its midpoint. To call the take bold would be generous. To call it logical would be something else entirely. In Gagnon's scenario, the Buccaneers, despite winning the NFC South and re-signing Mayfield to a 3-year, $100 million deal just months ago, would pivot sharply away from their franchise quarterback and ship him off mid-season. The reasoning? Gagnon believes a regression or collapse is possible, citing Tampa Bay's aging roster and Mayfield's league-leading 16 interceptions in 2024. A collapse is possible considering the team is generally over the hill, and the talented but inconsistent Mayfield tied Cousins with a league-high 16 interceptions in 2024, Gagnon wrote. We won't speculate on injuries, but the Steelers and Vikings both come to mind in the event that either the Aaron Rodgers experiment blows up quickly or J.J. McCarthy gets off to a horrible start in Minnesota. Let's unpack this. First and foremost, Mayfield's 16 interceptions in 2024 were not a reflection of incompetence. They were a byproduct of aggressive play, a style that has always defined the former Heisman winner's game. Mayfield didn't flinch in the face of pressure. He took chances, pushed the ball downfield, and refused to play scared, and the results, more often than not, rewarded that approach. He finished the season with over 4,000 passing yards, 28 touchdowns, and a career-best 66.4% completion rate. He elevated the play of his teammates, particularly young wideouts like Trey Palmer, and navigated the Buccaneers to an NFC South title in a year many thought they'd be bottom feeders. Was Mayfield perfect? No. But to suggest Tampa Bay would cut bait after that kind of performance, after he resurrected not only his career, but the franchise's short-term future, strains credibility. General Manager Jason Licht and head coach Todd Bowles have publicly and repeatedly backed Mayfield as their guy, praising his leadership, competitiveness, and resilience in the face of skepticism. Let's also not forget the contractual implications. The Buccaneers didn't just bring Mayfield back on a whim. They committed 3 years and $100 million to him, including $50 million guaranteed. That's not the kind of deal you sign with the intention of flipping the player 6 months later unless something catastrophic occurs, and nothing about Mayfield's current trajectory suggests catastrophe. He is the face of the franchise right now, the emotional engine of the locker room, and a critical piece of Tampa Bay's hopes of remaining contenders in the NFC. But beyond the Tampa Bay perspective, Gagnon's proposed destinations raise more questions than answers. Start with Pittsburgh. The Steelers made waves in the offseason by acquiring future Hall of Famer Aaron Rodgers in a blockbuster move from the New York Jets, signaling their intention to go all in on a Super Bowl push. Rodgers, who sat out most of 2024 due to injury, is expected to be healthy and ready to roll in 2025. The idea that the Steelers would ditch that investment before midseason and pivot to another veteran quarterback, one with a drastically different playing style and leadership approach, seems far-fetched. Rodgers has one of the highest football IQs in league history. He commands an offense with nuance and precision, often playing chess while others play checkers. Mayfield, for all his talent and grit, is a gunslinger who thrives on rhythm, improvisation, and momentum. To install him into an offense built around Rodgers would require a mid-season philosophical overhaul, not something most teams do lightly. There's also the matter of the Steelers' young QB room. Even if Rodgers were to get injured again or underperform, Pittsburgh might opt to see what they have in a developmental arm before handing the reins to someone like Mayfield, who would command a hefty cap hit and potentially alter the locker room dynamics. As for Minnesota, the Vikings are in a different stage of their quarterback journey. Having moved on from Kirk Cousins, the team invested heavily in Michigan product J.J. McCarthy, selecting him early in the 2025 NFL Draft. By all indications, the Vikings are committed to giving McCarthy every opportunity to grow into the starting role. Would they bring in a player like Mayfield midseason, especially if McCarthy struggles early? Possibly. But again, it's a stretch. Teams don't draft quarterbacks in the top 10 and then bail after a few shaky starts. That's not how long-term development works, and Vikings GM Kwesi Adofo-Mensah has shown a preference for patience and data-driven decision-making over reactive moves. In both scenarios, Mayfield would be walking into complex environments with high expectations, little prep time, and substantial media scrutiny. That doesn't mean he couldn't succeed. He's shown time and again that he can adapt under pressure, but the odds of these situations materializing remain slim to none. Let's return to the core of the issue. Baker Mayfield is not a quarterback on the trading block. He's a quarterback ascending. A quarterback who has rebuilt his narrative, restored belief in his leadership, and earned the respect of teammates, coaches, and front office executives alike. The 2024 season was arguably his best yet, not just in raw production, but in intangible value. Mayfield stood tall through adversity. He beat playoff teams. He took a Bucs roster many thought was past its expiration date and turned it into a legitimate threat. He proved he belonged, not just as a journeyman stopgap, but as a franchise leader. The Buccaneers, for their part, are building around him. The offensive line has been reinforced. The receiving core remains elite, with Mike Evans re-signing and Chris Godwin continuing to shine. The defense, still led by stalwarts like Levante David and Vita Vea, remains formidable. Tampa Bay is not a team looking to blow things up. They're aiming to climb higher, and Baker Mayfield is their quarterback for that journey. Gagnon's article isn't malicious. It's part of the off-season machine. It stirs conversation, generates clicks, and keeps fans engaged during the quiet months. But it also serves as a reminder, not all takes are created equal. Just because something is possible doesn't make it probable. Just because a team has options doesn't mean they'll make reckless choices. And just because a quarterback throws picks doesn't mean he's on his way out. Mayfield has always been misunderstood. From his days as a walk-on at Texas Tech to his Heisman-winning run at Oklahoma to his up-and-down tenure in Cleveland, he's carried labels. Cocky. Reckless. Overrated. But at every stop, he's proven the critics wrong. He's fought through injuries, system changes, and endless scrutiny, and he's still standing. In Tampa Bay, he's found stability, trust, and a scheme that highlights his strengths. So while it's easy to float wild trade scenarios during the NFL's quietest weeks, the reality is much simpler. The Bake Show isn't closing anytime soon. Baker Mayfield is here to stay. And with the weapons around him, the buy-in from his teammates, and the momentum from a successful 2024 campaign, he just might take the Buccaneers further than anyone expected. Not to the bench. Not to the trade block. But perhaps all the way to the NFC Championship or beyond.